Hey there, Shop Maniacs. You are listening to another episode of the Shop Talk Show podcast, all about front-end web design development. And we have a YouTube now. I guess we should say that. We've been posting some videos up to our YouTube here, right, Chris? We're doing the
exactly. Chris Enns has been working on that, and it's kind of thanks to some of the technology in Riverside as well that makes this easier. I mean, I'm looking at Dave's face right now as we record this. You know, we might as well be in the same room, but we're not. But for the power of the internet. And, we just flipped the switch on in Riverside that says, hey, why don't you capture the video too? Why not? I can't promise that it's going to be like 1,000x interesting YouTube video, but YouTube is so big that and we heard from people directly that are like, I would listen on YouTube if I could. I think people have their own YouTube flows or whatever they do. They just vibe with YouTube. And I thought, why not publish there too? It's just another publishing target. And if it doesn't cost us that much more money and time to drop it off there as well, hey, why not? Let's do it. It also gives us the opportunity to do little shorts and stuff. Shorts are just kind of fun. And certainly a lot of people vibe with those things, whatever you're in the bathroom and flipping through shorts. Makes sense to me.
Somebody told me my head was big, so I changed my camera. So that's cool.
I see. Oh, that's what it really is.
Actually, I don't know.
A lot more people seeing your face.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh man, I might have to like comb my hair and,
fair enough.
Do things.
I guess we'll share a screen here and there as well if it is like obviously powerful to what we're showing. I don't know.
Yeah, instead of mouth blogging things,
but we'll not worry about
it later.
We're going to make sure that we don't like harm the audio version of the show. Yeah. Certainly, that's what I listen to.
Yeah, so. The audios are primary. So, but hey, anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. So we do this every week for the last 15 years.
Maybe it opens up some sponsor opportunities too. We have the Patreon and the Discord, which mostly funds the show, but I will tell you, not quite. So it's nice to have a sponsor here and there. No pressure. You don't have to join. We love the people that do it, and it does form a pretty nice little community. Certainly the most pleasant community I'm a part of online. So way to go, Shopomaniacs. And but like I wouldn't mind doing an ad here and there. So I'll say that this episode is very much sponsored by CodePen Pro.
Hey,
that's my actual day job that makes sure I can pay my mortgage quite literally and all that. So please join. We are headed into a private beta of the new CodePen editor. As you probably hear me poke out once in a while, this thing is taking us a very long time, but we're trying to do a good job and send it out import. What we're going to do at Discord based, Dave? I think this is a little bit interesting. Is that you can send somebody a link to a Discord to join a particular. What are they? Organization.
Like a channel,
what do you call the highest level thing?
Yeah,
a server. I guess is the highest level thing on Discord, and then the invite tends to be to a particular channel. Although once you're in the Discord, if there's a public channel, you just have access to that too. So it seems like a little half baked to me in a way. But we'll invite you to the private beta channel on the Discord. In our CodePen Discord. And then we're able to wire up, they have robust APIs so you can be like, you could get like kind of like a webhook, be like, hey, when somebody joins the channel, fire off a webhook to whatever. That's a little bit of custom code. So we're like, you know what, instead of writing it, we'll just use Zapier. Zapier has a zap that's like, when somebody joins a private channel, then do a webhook or whatever. And we're like, ooh, that's nice. So I just attached that to that particular channel. So I send out a Discord invite to you, for example. You join the Discord, then a webhook gets fired off to our server, and I just wrote a quick little Go endpoint for it that just says like, oh, really? Interesting. Real quick, throw something in Redis that says, make like a UUID and throw it in Redis and say that's valid for one use of like a feature flag, essentially. And then send a little chunk of JSON back to Zapier that says like, okay, here's a special URL and a little message. So we can control the message in our code base. And the message says like, hey, welcome to the CodePen beta. Here's a URL you can click to redeem your feature flag or whatever. Cool. So they get a DM on Discord that says like, welcome to the beta. They can click that. Then they have to be logged into CodePen. It checks to see that it's a valid key in our little Redis store. And then for the logged in user, it just adds the feature flag to them. It takes them to a special landing page that explains what's going on and all that kind of thing. But I thought it was nice to have a Discord first invite flow for beta. So if somebody wants to join the beta, I just give them this URL and walk away. Like that.
You should publish that, man. That like we rolled out like a whole waiting system for Luro, you know, like sign up, and it like went to like a Netlify form, and then we pulled that into a spreadsheet, and then we were like, you know, bulk inviting, you know, like how cool would it be just to be like, oh, you got into the Discord private beta channel? Great. You know, like, here you go. You now have access to the thing.
It forces you into it, though.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm okay with that, because if a user's like, oh, I don't want to be in the Discord, that's okay. You can just wait for the public beta that's later.
Yeah, if they never click the link, they're never in, right?
But like a private beta is like, I'm asking you for feedback. So like if you don't have the time or wherewithal to even participate in the Discord at all, then just wait. It's cool, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like I hope that some people do and want to, and we'll be thankful for them and in some way. So that's the idea. Yeah, kind of cool. Should be ready next week-ish, I hope. You know, feel free to email if you really want in on that beta or whatever. Woo! A lot of work, man. I'll tell you what. I'm getting some landing pages together, because I'm like, well, once you kind of, rather than just drop them into the experience with no help at all, we're like, gosh, there should be a page that explains what's up, what you can and can't do. I'm going to have to make the new documentation public. We got a tour together, so there's like a button in the footer that's like, you know, walks you around the new editor. It doesn't force it down your throat, but if you kind of want a tour, that's available, because there's just a lot of work just on that side. Like the hard part was getting the actual application to do all the stuff that it needs to do, and then when you're looming down on actually releasing it, you're like, oh god, there's so much tangential stuff you have to do.
No, you start pulling that thread on the sweater, and you're just we had the same thing. It's like, oh, finally we built the user auth system and the wait list. Oh my god, we're ready for users. And you're like, we have no onboarding. Crap. You know, like, what do we do? Like, you know, like, oh, we got to go through. We got to build out little screens and little charts that fill up or whatever, you know, and you're just like, man, this is so much work. Thankfully it's just like one component that made like 1 billion requests to figure out how much application they've used or whatever. But like, yeah, it was just, you know, you just start, you think like, oh, we're good. And then we can get people to sign up. And then you're like, ooh, but are they going to just sign up and not know what's going on? Or are they going to sign up and be like, oh, okay, I get what's going on. You know, that's a whole science. That's a whole team's job. That's what we also realized. Like there's at big companies, Chris, there's a whole team the size of CodePen who only do the onboarding piece, you know?
Yeah.
It's wild. So it's so much, it's so critical, and it's so like, oh yeah, we have to do that. Like,
that's what makes startups so amazing. It's like you have all the jobs, all of them, and there's an amazing number of them.
Take $1 billion, and you have all the jobs. You can have all the jobs filled out. So there's a.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to that. Sponsored by CodePen at the moment, but you know, Sweet Baby Ray's, we're always listening.
Yeah. So Sweet Baby Ray's. Subway, I know they technically don't sell food or whatever, but like we'll hawk Subway sandwiches. We'll do it.
I was sick the other week, and as I was getting off of being sick, you know, then because you haven't eaten, your body is just purged. You get like a hunger like no other. You know, feel like you're like, I could eat anything. And somehow, some way, what my body really craved was a sandwich from Subway.
A $5
That's what I wanted after being sick.
Italian, spicy Italian. Heck yeah,
that was my high school sandwich for sure. I've graduated into being more open-minded about which sandwich I get there. But what doesn't change is I get just extra pickles, extra banana peppers, extra jalapenos. I like the vinegary crunch of a Subway sandwich. Not sponsored. Could be, though.
Could be
easily.
if a different sandwich company wants to get in on this, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime. I was playing with some CSS yesterday that I thought was interesting because I was working on some of these landing pages. Of course, that's how content comes up, is you do your job and then you're like, oh, that's interesting, and then it becomes a little bit of content in a way. But there was like a special card-like container we were using that has kind of a light rainbowy kind of background. But as you know, most of the we're going to be digging into color modes a little more seriously on CodePen, like actually switching to a light mode if you want to. But for at the moment, a lot of our like landing page public stuff is pretty much just dark mode only. So when I'm throwing in like a little card bubble that's actually more like light mode within a dark mode world, a lot of stuff just isn't ready to go. Like the colors of links will just be wrong. Like you can change the color, and then you're like, oh, cool, I did it. And then all of a sudden there's an anchor link in the middle of the text, and it's like way too light of a blue or something. You're like, okay, well, I can't change just that color. I have to change any other colors inside as well. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to do was like just have underlined links. I don't know if this is directly related, but I'm just going to go for it. I think it's nice within body copy to have your links generally be blue and generally be underlined. Like if you can do that, that's probably a good idea. I think that's just how links generally are on the web.
Smart default. Smart default.
But it's a little harsh, I find. I find the default browser blue to be like too blue mostly. For situations. So I like to change the blue a little bit. I find that underline to be a little tight against the text. And I find the fact that the underline is the same blue also to be a little harsh. So there's a couple of things you can do to like still maintain your basic needs there, but chill it out a little bit. And one of them is you can push that underline away a pixel or two if you want to. You can do that text decoration offset, I think.
Offset, yep.
Yeah, you can push it away just a little bit. I think makes it look a little nicer. And then you can keep the underline the same color, but you can tone it down the opacity by just doing, because now you can do text decoration color. That's a new thing. Or is it text underline color? I think it's specific to underline. It's one of the two. And you can, what color would you set it to though? Well, you can use color mix and say color mix in a color space. The current color, current color is just a keyword.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In CSS, current color, and then mix it with transparent 50% or 80% or something. That way, the underline is just whatever the color is, the link already is, but you've just chilled out that underline. You've moved it away a little bit, and you've added some opacity to whatever color it currently is. And then just make the hover restore the color of the underline, which gives it a nice hover/focus thing. I just thought it was nice. It was a nice little approach there. And I shared it, and then people made it better on Blue Sky, and I was like, well, cool. And a tutor chimed in with an even better way, because you don't have to, if you're putting this in something like a reset style sheet, which I almost think is worthy of that. That you don't have to say text decoration underline on a link, because it already is in a reset, know, and then you can just say, you can just apply a style to when it's not in hover. You can say is not hover focus, and then that will give it that particular style when it's not being hovered, and then when it's hovered, it removes that style and goes back to the default. I was like, actually, that's clever. It turns this thing into literally a one-line in your CSS. So sorry about the mouth blog there. Maybe I should attempt to share screen with that. But I intentionally didn't share screen because I was worried that I would
leave the code
rely too much on the visual of it.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, no, I think you described it enough. I understood it. I think I think it's cool. Like from I think there's just I think there's a lot you can do with links. I like that. The current color and color mix. Are you finding, what's the support of color mix? I feel like it's
super
pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better because I avoided it for a long time, because when I learned about here's the thing that I find myself wanting to do the most. apply some opacity to the color that I already have. And I don't care what it is. Like, it could be any color, and it could be in any format. I just want 80% transparency on whatever it is that I already have. The answer to that is usually, or to me, the first syntax I saw that I really liked of it was the relative color syntax. The one where you use color and then you say use the from
RGB,
keyword, and it can be whatever. Yes, and I really like that. It can be in any color format.
/
And then you can just apply transparency at the end of it. And I learned that, and I was like, well, I love that. I still love that. I'm just going to wait for that. The trouble is that support for that was real lacking, and still is, although it is an interop this year. So that will be ready to go by the end of the year. But today, you can use Color Mix to do the same thing with the browser mixer. If all you're trying to do is just apply some transparency to it, just do it in sRGB, and then just mix it with transparency, and you get the same result, and you can use it today. So, I'm a fan of Color Mix. Also, in my mind, I was like, who needs to mix like red and blue to make purple? Like, I just don't need to do that. I don't want to like
hand mix your paints.
Answer to that.
Yeah.
If I want purple, I want to hand pick my purple, you know?
What's the paint place? Benjamin, what's his face? I'm not running
an
a
actual
paint shop.
brand.
You know, I'm not running a paint shop over here. Okay, I'm not Home Depot. I'm not like Martha Stewart mixing colors and crap. I really like mostly want to opacify or do something really
slightly
extreme,
lighten,
like,
slightly darken. But if it comes to be like, give me a little green, a little pink, a little, that ain't happening. That's going to happen in another app, and then I'm going to have the perfect right color, and then I'm going to make that a variable. That's just me. No shame. Like, I don't hate that color mix exists or anything. It's just I like using it for mixing with black or white or whatever.
Yeah. I think
I had to go through our whole code base and fix that crap up too. We wanted to get on the latest version of Sass. I don't even remember why, but it's nice to be on the latest version of stuff. And there's been so many changes in Sass, even Dart Sass on Beyond, where it's like there is no lighten and darken and stuff anymore. And they took like principled stands. They're like, you don't actually want darken. You want color.adjust, with this, or, there's some stuff in the docs that is like, people lean too heavily on darken, but what you really want to do is add black to your color, not darken it or something. It's like, okay.
Oh, man.
At least the migration tool was like, okay. But there's some just deprecated stuff. You used to be able to to have a selector, like .dave, curly bracket, and then inside of it put include, and then it would go grab a file or whatever and blast it in there. Well, include is deprecated now. You have to use @use. That's the new thing. I think that's a smart move. But we occasionally scoped some stuff through that, so it's like, oh gosh, we have to refactor that entirely. There are no just raw functions anymore. There's no nth or darken or anything like that. It's all like you have to @use something. Like it has like a module system. You have to use Sass color, and then you have access to color dot stuff in it. It ended up being like, oh man, this is like a lot of work.
You're trying to say my Compass app isn't gonna work anymore?
Your mixins now have to be at the end of all your declarations before nesting, and I always put them first because I had a hard rule. I was like, all mixins should be the first thing in a block of CSS, because
for sure.
If you want to, they're just more visible because they're a little more powerful, because who knows what they're doing, so I want to see them at the top. And then if they do something that I don't like, I have an opportunity after them to override something that happened in that mixin. But if they're at the bottom, I don't.
Yeah, functions at top seems smart, but what do I know? This is the problem with the CSS industrial complex, Chris. Okay? Big CSS is trying to get into your code base and make you change things. Okay? I think that needs to stop. You know what I mean?
It does.
Yeah.
So I have a PR up now. This is our second or third on like, let's fix it all up, because also they're just deprecations, they're deprecation warnings, not full deprecations. So like it will still work. Some of this stuff will still work for a minute, but you just get a big nasty red warning in CI, you know, or at the command line when you run it. And I was sick of looking at them, you know. So it went in, but there's still some stuff to fix, and then the temptation is while your brain is in like a really right brain kind of thing where you're just like looking at code, you're just like, all right, I know what it wants me to do. I'm just going to make these changes throughout the code base. But then you step back and look at your PR and you're like, man, I touched a bunch of stuff.
Every file, yeah.
And I did not.
500 files changed.
Yeah. And we don't have any like, you know, I'm trying to think of the canonical apps that do this, but there's some nice apps that I do kind of support the existence of, but do find them like that's going to be a lot. Is that I'll have like previous screenshots of all your pages, then you do up a PR and it makes new screenshots of all those pages and does a visual diff, and just has a little warning that says like, oh, you know, your user profile page changed in this way, and you can look at it and be like, oh, that color is now wrong, or it's missing an underline or something. We don't really have that. It feels like you just get false positives like a ton with apps like that, I think. So you just got to do some click-throughs and stuff, and you know, and of course it's one of those, it doesn't feel good to be finished because your goal with all this work is so that nothing changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just complete, like trying to be, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to touch every single file in the code base, but I'm not going to break anything or move anything. Those are risky, man. I feel that. I'm in the middle of that right now with somebody, but it's this like, that's a hard one. That's a hard, like, we're going to make a big sweeping change and there will be 0 things moved on the page, you know? That's a tough one to sell.
Sometimes at the end of it, you're like, well, but now we're on the latest TypeScript and it actually has some feature that we want to use. So now we're able to do it and that feels good. And there's just some general fuzzies inside about like not being on outdated technology or whatever. That's pretty freaking loose though, you know? And sometimes at the end of it, you're like, it unlocks nothing.
Yeah. 0% different. We just updated small number to big number, and that's the only difference. So maybe less dependencies. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe there's a little speed here and there sometimes that comes out. I mean, I remember that was an impetus to get to Dart Sass at all, is that, you know, when you're on Ruby Sass, clearly that's much slower.
Yeah.
See the news that TypeScript's getting a lot faster? That's pretty cool. They ported to
I
Go.
did see that. That makes me almost want to use it. No, I use TypeScript. Porting to Go, right? And then it's like 10x faster on average, like from
huge, dude, for us.
From like, you know, for a large app, I had that post all right here, actually.
Well, to us, it's not only our app, but the TypeScript that we offer to the world. So here's the big thing about TSC. There's only one usage of TypeScript that actually outputs error messages about problems with types. There is lots of stuff out there that will take your TypeScript and execute it, but it does that by type stripping. That's how Dino's doing it. Or I mean, there's probably some nuance to this that I'm getting wrong, but that's how certainly the new Node does it, and that's how ESBuild builds it and all this stuff. If you can get away with just having ESBuild run your TypeScript, that's great. But ESBuild's just stripping it. The reason it's so fast is it just strips out all the types and runs it. So if you have an egregious problem in your types, it could care less. It is not going to give you that feedback. So that feedback is only happening at like a CI level, and guess what's running it? TSC. Or like the VS Code level, and guess what's happening? TSC. You know? So if TSC is the slow thing, that's what's really a bummer. And so if we're offering TypeScript on CodePen, which of course we are in a very nice way on the new CodePen, like a real proper good TypeScript experience, if we want to be showing our users, hey, you screwed up your type right here on line 8 of you know, hamburger.tsx, we have to run TSC. We have to.
Yeah.
And it's slow.
Yeah, well, and you probably have a server loop, right? You're going from CodePen to the TypeScript server back, right? Like, unless you're putting a TypeScript server on the computer.
And there might even be steps ahead of it, too, because it's like, I don't know. Maybe not with this particular technology, but we make a whole build process, and we have to go through the steps of the build process, and then it will then get to TSC potentially a couple steps down the road. And I don't know. I'm just pointing that out to be like, any speed improvement to TSC is welcome, especially, one that's like written. We chose Go because Go is smoking fast for our build process stuff like this. And it's nice to be validated. Like, why did they do it? Speed.
Yeah.
Why did we do it? Speed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and it's going to be like, it looks like from a large VS Code, 1.5 million lines of code, it took 77 seconds to compile it. And the new one is 7.5. Like, can you imagine, like, you're building the project and it's just like, I'll see you in a minute, like that's a lot of action. So that's a lot of waiting, like from a classic, like, how long is this going to take? And then, like, you talk about CI servers, which are like, I'm finding like 10x slower than your computer,
slow.
Right? Like, for some reason we've decided servers should be slow, slower than laptops.
Because they provision like the cheapest Linux distro thing absolutely possible to run that.
Yeah, there's 700 computers on this one computer, and so your 77 seconds turns into 700 seconds. So you're talking about like 10 minutes just to build. You didn't even run a test; you just did a build.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I just ran
all the time, and it's always like, it's like my commit where I changed, like one hex color. And it's like, all right, computer, buckle up. You're spending 10 minutes running some absolutely unrelated unit tests for my hex code change. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I built our project and I had an error, so I need to figure that out. That's a cool thing I got to do today. But because I don't think it was there yesterday. But it took 56 seconds. So, like, I don't think we're in the millions of lines of code. I guess I could figure that out. But what is it? WCL? And then I'll just do like star.ts or something like that. WCL packages. How do I do this? There's a... Okay. Yeah, we're at 70K lines of code, and it took 56 seconds or so. Let's say 1 second per 1,000, right? Lines of code. So, and then imagine that going down to 1 second per 10,000. Like, that'd be incredible. That'd be incredibly fast. So
a straight up order of magnitude change is obviously a big deal. It'd be nice to see two orders of magnitude.
Like, build the whole project before in a pre-commit, because right now, like, we're not doing like build in pre-commit, right? Because that would take too long. Like, you're just trying to commit code up, and every time you do it, it takes 70 seconds, a minute. Like, you would move that into like sub 10-second territory. You could build the whole project in a pre-commit hook, and then now your CI is going to sail through. No surprises unless the CI has some different config or something.
You're making a intentional choice to move some work left, as they say.
Move it left. And so I feel like that's a huge thing, Then it's just down to test, but I mean, maybe your whole test suite gets faster, because I'm sure the test suite has to make sure all the modules are built,
Yeah.
So
Lovely.
Anyhow, that's cool. I mean, I'm pro faster TypeScript. JSDoc also had a huge drop. It's faster now too. You just type 10x less words. So
Is that
if you had a 10 word variable name, you just do one, and it's 10x faster.
10x
so
faster.
JSDoc really, just delete all descriptions of variables super fast. So just like TypeScript.
A lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you remove the descriptions, it works just as fast. So
totally.
10x.
Vanilla is really crushing it too. They actually recommend just not writing any JavaScript at all.
Yeah. The fastest JavaScript is the JavaScript you'd never ship.
Yeah.
That's always going to be true. So.
There's I wanted to put this out there in case anybody wants to write in about interesting. we all know what AI slop is, right? It's just really low effort crap, You could write me a story about, Amelia Bedelia. Remember those books? Yeah, I don't know. That was like a kid's book that we
Go
got.
ahead. Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Or Mama
Goofus
Llama.
and Gallant.
Llama
Okay.
Llama?
Yeah, Mama
No,
Llama. Yeah, Red Pajama.
Llama Llama. Write me a Llama Llama story.
Red Pajama.
You could go to Claude and be like, write me a nice story about Llama Llama. Reference all the existing Llama Llama books that already are published, but make this one where he really wants some new sunglasses, but he can't afford them. So his mom makes him do chores and stuff to save up for him. And then it turns out at the end, he doesn't actually want them anyway. He wants a Nintendo Switch game or something. Like, just put some plot details in there. We all know that AI would probably do a pretty good job, right? Like, not amazing. It's not going to be a story that's maybe ready for the shelves or something, but it's going to get you started, But if you just all you do is copy and pasted that thing and just published it, I'd put it in the slop category.
Yeah,
because it's just
sort of
low effort,
yeah.
just bleh, bleh. And I think there's going to be more and more that as AI improves, there's just more and more of that. Like, I'm not even going to look. There's not even going to be a human in the process, hardly.
Send. Yeah.
And I
I've
feel
heard
that's
like
already happening quite a bit.
Amazon's, like you can self-publish on Amazon or whatever. Like, I've heard that market is completely swamped. Like, it's just people going straight to AI.
Which means that it's working a little bit. There's enough people either swindled or choosing to buy books of this category that it works, because otherwise they would stop doing it. And I think that's my point here. Is that I've been swindled once. I bought a kid's book. We forgot to bring books, and we always do books at bedtime. So I just pulled out my phone and I went to Apple Books and I downloaded some book that looked good, and I started flipping through the first few virtual pages of it. And there was a little call out box that says, this is my first book that I used AI to write. It was like almost like a self-congratulatory thing. I was like, I want to be warned. I was pissed. I wouldn't even read it. I was like, I should be warned before I pay $7.99 for a book if some author just pooped out some AI and published it.
Yeah,
I want to be told that. That is garbage.
What was your $7 contribution times number of books? Was it one sentence prompt? Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to pay less.
Be true, Dave. They might have used AI
$1.
sprinkles. They could have spent more time manipulating the AI to get what they wanted than they would have writing it. Maybe it was an amazing amount of effort, but I'm so sensitive to it right now that I'm not ready to hear that. Nor did they offer that information. They just said, we used AI to build it. So I was annoyed by that. We get some of our friend group shares around Instagram crap sometimes. We got one the other day from a friend that was this really beautiful, it was like a praying mantis bug, and it flew in and landed on somebody's hand, but it was a rare kind of praying mantis bug that a little flower, or actually it was kind of a big flower, grew on the back of the praying mantis, and it was like, wow, what an interesting, beautiful bug. But I was also like, it's a little too beautiful, and the backgrounds are like these snowy mountains. It looks like they're at about 12,000 feet altitude. Why is there this big juicy praying mantis bug with a flower on the back?
Mantis like to hang out in the snow.
And then I was like, no, it's AI. And we wrote back, we looked it up, and it actually is a kind of interesting praying mantis bug that kind of looks like a orchid flower. So we write back and be like, oh, actually the real version of that bug is actually pretty cool too. And they were like, oh gosh, what do you mean real version? I was totally duped, They were just duped that this was an AI thing. So that's happening more and more. And then my kid, eating cereal in the morning, is listening to a new podcast. It's called Bluey Stories. That's the name of it. It's on Apple Podcasts, or I think it's on all this stuff. And it's really weird. It's got a big picture of Bluey and Bingo on the cover. It's Bluey Stories in the Bluey font. But when you listen to it, it's just like some lady explaining the plot, it's almost like they took an episode of Bluey and they turned it into a short book, and then they read the book out loud.
Okay.
Like, the book may or may not exist, but somehow it was turned into a book.
Synopsis to book kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was like, gosh, the voice is like, okay, it sounds like a real person, but the cadence is pretty strict. There's no mistakes ever. It's just, I was like, you know what? I bet this is just AI slop. And then the next one's like an Australian guy voice, you know, and then somebody sent me this like 11
for
labs
that, mate.
or something.
Oh, mate.
And then
paid $2.95 for another voice.
yeah. And I was like, that's what this is, I bet. But it's weird because there's no ads, you know, but it really doesn't look official. And I look at all the reviews of it, and there's like 800-ish reviews, and they're all just crap.
This is great.
Or not great, or I'm mad at Billy, or a bunch of emojis, or whatever. There's not a single one of them that I thought looked like, oh, God, a person clearly listened to this and reviewed it and left the message of the review. Nothing. So I was like, oh, my God, it's like the fourth time I've been duped or swindled by AI slop, like in a
This
month
week,
or less.
Yeah. Jeez. It's getting hard. I do have a story about
But
that.
some people want it. My daughter wants it. She chooses this podcast. You know what I mean? It's not right.
There is a market, like people who want cheap content, right? Like they've read all the salacious elf erotica books, and they just want more.
Well, they want another one.
They just want another one, and AI is happy to deliver. You know what I mean? So like, that's fine. Like if you're like, no, I'm digging in the trash bin, and I friggin' want trash. I am a raccoon for elf erotica. Okay, like this is what I want. That's fine. You can do that. I'm super happy for you. I do think there is, though, like that needs to be devalue. Like I value it less, so I would like it to have less value or cost $0 and be very transparent about what created this monstrosity.
Sure.
You know, that's me. Yeah, I do have a story, but I was gonna say, if you want some quality Mama Llama Red Pajama content, there's a video of Ludacris rapping Mama Llama Red Pajama. So you gotta watch that. That's very good.
I've seen it many times. It's one of those videos that's like, if this comes across my desk, I am definitely going to watch it because it's amazing.
It's like, no matter how many times the algorithm serves that up to me, I'm watching it. You know, I was like, oh, okay, yep, we're doing Luda again.
Yeah,
this
it's
is
one
great.
of the best.
So I was on Blue Sky, right, this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
New follower, like 30, 50, hundreds of new followers on Blue Sky.
Oh, really?
Like I've had like explosive weekends, like when Twitter died, and Twitter did die, I think on Monday, but like when Twitter like is having problems or kind of Naziing out, like I've had like an influx of users, but it's usually like kind of people I know, right? It's usually familiar faces from the internetosphere of web development, right? How you would find me, I don't know. You either listen to the podcast or you know my work, probably. That's fine. Like, that's normal to me. But it's never in the, like, 50s and 60s numbers, like, coming to Blue Sky in a weekend. And I start clicking on all these profiles to see, like, who's coming in. And it's all these, like, left-wing, like, just, grifter accounts, like all these just like, oh, I hate Trump and MAGA, no MAGA, also no porn and no crypto, please, you know, something like that. GM's open, you know, and so it's all these like fake accounts that are basically like left-wing activist accounts. It's like a grandma in Kentucky who loves LGBTQ DACA, you know, and you're like, oh, those don't go together, but that's weird, you know, like, anyway, it's just this, it was this influx of left-wing botnet, like bot accounts. And, you know, with AI and LLMs and everything, those are getting more convincing as far as like looking and appearing like real humans. They were overloaded with keywords, but like, again, who's doing this? Why are they doing it? Who has like these have like 25,000 followers a piece, and they're following 25,000 accounts. They have 16,000 followers. So this is a botnet of about, 30, 50, 100,000 bots. Who's paying for that? A state actor. Like, who's getting duped by it? Probably a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I got cool new followers, like, like it's a problem. It's going to be bad, dude. Like what's the security mechanism to stop all this? I don't, this is, and I don't blame AI specifically. It's just this like, kind of like, it is slop though. It's a form of slop. It's just fake accounts, fake bots doing fake engagement to whatever, steal your credit card at some point, or dupe you into voting for a different political candidate.
Yeah, you got to wonder what the actual motive is. It's so weird to me when the motive is unclear.
Yeah.
That freaks me out. And you're like, what are you trying to do? Like, what is this Bluey podcast trying to do, really? Like, some human wired this up? Why?
Dude, it's bringing this back to web development. I've like wondered, like, I've kind of been like, that's in context, right? But like, I wish like every, podcast had to say like, here's why this exists or something like that on the top, or like every component, every variant in your design system, it's like a sentence that says, here's why this exists, like some people don't like the primary button, so we made the secondary button, or like, why does this exist? Because Jim really wasn't going to collaborate on the primary button, so he made all outline buttons, or something. I don't know. Like that's a fine excuse. It's not the best excuse, but it's a fine it's a fine reason. So like, I don't know. I feel like everything needs to have like a little context stapled to it, so we kind of all know why something exists. So,
I love that. It reminds me of my database column idea, where I feel like almost every single database column should have like a why text at the end of it. That's like if it was ever edited or touched or whatever. Like, I know that's like probably a waste of space on a lot of database tables, but I find myself wanting it so often and be like, what changed here? Who changed it? Why'd they change it?
Why? Yeah, like even like bans, right? Like, why did I ban this person? Why did I mute this person? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Why? I'd love to know, like, what 2016 Dave was thinking about certain JavaScript influencers.
It's kind of a nice. It's a little bit of a reason. There's this kind of expensive group email app we use called Front, and it's not the only one on the block. And in fact, there's some other cool alternatives I've seen recently. But one of the number one features that I like about it is that your whole team logs into it, and you're seeing, for example, the support email address. Mm-hmm. Everybody can see that same inbox. Mm-hmm. But like if Marie on our team responds, I can see that it was Marie who responded, even though to that person it kind of just looks like CodePen or whatever. Although we all sign it when we send it to, so there'd be another way to see that. But this other feature is that there's just chat attached to all email threads. So you're chatting back and forth with your team, not over email, just over the internal chat mechanism baked into the app. And what's cool is that adds a lot of context, and it stays there forever. So if you go back and look at like, oh, what was up with that situation, you're not only seeing the email thread, but you're seeing the internal conversation that happened with it, which is awfully useful,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was Basecamp used to have a CRM. I'm sure like Salesforce does this too, but like Basecamp had a CRM tool that was kind of like that. Not Campfire. Not Basecamp. Yeah, High Rise, I think it was what it's called. But yeah, you could like get a little like email thread or like basically a chain of like, here's what we told this person on October 2nd, I think, yeah, just a little context stapled to that conversation that exists in time, and then people don't have to remember why that exists. Yeah. Huge.
Lovely. Wonderful. How much time? We have a little time left here. Let's do one that Steve wrote in, just because this might ignite some interesting stuff from the old community there. Steve Polito, friend of the show, writes in. This is from a little while back, because we've had this, our numbers are like fine on this show, but certainly not. We're not in a hockey stick growth category here at Shop Talk Show listeners, and in fact, it's a little hard to know because we've switched platforms and stuff over the years and stuff, but it's my guess that we've had a peak that is higher than it is now as far as listenership on Shop Talk Show, and we were worried about that. We were thinking, oh, I wonder if it's like you were a fan of the show early and then you just changed. You like got a different job, or you leveled up and stuff. I wonder if there's a bunch of senior developers now. Dave and I are senior developers, so you'd think you could still value listening to this show to some degree, but maybe you're just like less interested. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, if you end up in like a more managery position, maybe your senior level is more managery. Like I could see why you'd be like, I'm not going to do the whole podcast every week. I totally get that. So
yeah. So Steve wanted to share his journey, and with hopes that other people might share theirs too in kind of bullet point form. So let's read Steve. Steve said in 2012, had an internship as a web designer developer, turned into a full-time gig, was the only developer at an agency. That's so funny. It's exactly how mine were kind of. That was the sink or swim moment, and was spending time configuring and styling Drupal sites and WordPress sites and building HTML emails and that kind of thing. Didn't do a lot of JavaScript, didn't really dig down on the fundamentals. Time goes on, he got really confident at doing that styling and working on those sites, but if needed to do something custom on those sites and there wasn't like a Drupal plugin or WordPress plugin to do it, he was in trouble. Next bullet point. I eventually discovered Rails, which was an aha moment for me. I realized this is what I was looking for, was a web development framework. Not a CMS, but a framework. I spent a year or so doing deep dive on Rails until I built up enough confidence that I convinced the agency I work for to take on a Rails project. Used Rails, used other hobby projects to build up a resume, and then started applying for literally Rails jobs. Concern was that the career options would be limited if I kept working in WordPress, not because WordPress isn't a great tool, but because there's a limit to what you can build with it. During this time, I wrote a lot of blog posts on the subject. So stevepolito.design was writing about Ruby on Rails. So did it at the last job, doing hobby projects in it, applying for Rails jobs, writing about Rails, et cetera, et cetera. Fortunately, I got a job as a Rails developer working at a startup. I think my writing is what helped me out. And then last bullet point, I'm happy to say that now I work at Thoughtbot, which is an agency that specializes in Rails specifically. So yeah, Thoughtbot is definitely who I think of when I think of Rails jobs. So interesting journey there, Steve. Feel free to send in your dev journey as well, how it started, how it's going.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
I thought this was good. I wanted to kind of see, Steve, you don't put dates on your blog posts. I'm going to flag you for that. But I wanted to see what was the intern to Rails timeline, because I think that's probably interesting to folks, like going from I'm just cooking WordPress to I'm writing apps and delivering these to people. I would love to know what that timeline is. He said it took a year to kind of learn Rails, but
yeah,
anyway, and everyone's timeline is going to be different, but I just kind of was curious, so, start writing for Hotwire blog. That's the Thoughtbot blog. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's cool. No,
pretty rad.
He's going to sneak a date in here somewhere. He's not perfect. He's going to put a date somewhere. He's going to use it as an example, and I'm going to find it.
Well, you can see the dates on the Thoughtbot blog post, but not
I'm going to find one.
Personal one.
I'm going to get him. Okay. Install Bootstrap 4 on Rails 6. Okay, cool. When... chart. Jarvis, when was Rails 6 release date?
Yeah. I bet AI would be decent at answering that question.
Let's see. August 2019. Okay, so I got it down to a 7-year window. Why I still think Rails is relevant in 2019. Haha, we're getting closer. But no, that's great. 6-7 years in the in the field, and feel like then it's time to writing and standing out and getting hired, and that's cool. That's awesome. I'd love to hear dev journeys like that in bullet point form. Yeah. I mean, mine is pretty boring. It's like worked, did, been doing websites as a hobby since I was 14 or 15 in the early 90s. Then ran a like multi-blog network thing. Then made real estate websites for Phoenix Real Estate Company in 2006-7, right as the real estate market crashed. Then started Paravel, and then got a job at Microsoft. So, pretty short list, that spans 30 years, but whatever. So,
Whatever. Yeah.
a short list, 5 bullet points, 30
There
years.
tends to be a little bit of a moment where you can point at and people's like, that's where they got smart, right there in that little spot.
That one.
Which I'm waiting for that moment still. I can't wait.
I did, Susan Robertson tagged me in the blog questions thing. Do we have time for this? Yeah, we sure. Tagged me in the blog questions thing. And I was kind of like, when the first question is like, why do you blog? And I always like had a zine in college or high school with my best friend Mike, and like we, stay up late gluing it together and stuff like that. And then did a blog in college, kind of like post college, getting a job, then moving to Japan sort of thing. And then my current blog was because like I think I went to South by in 2009 or something, like right when I moved to Austin, and I met Zeldman. Nice. Hero time, like, whoa, this is the guy, I read his book and now I make HTML sites now instead of Flash sites. Like, that was very cool. But I think like my takeaway from that, was actually like, hey, the difference between you and Zeldman, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but like he writes and he publishes, and then he gets published into books, and then he talks at conferences, and then he wins like lifetime South by South Webby Awards or whatever. Like, I think like, I'm not saying like it's a foolproof plan, but like that like gave me a template for like, here's how I could pursue a career, So it was, and that started in like 2009, So.
That's the shortcut nobody takes.
Well, and then
Not
like
nobody, but
I can like even trace what I do now, how the fact that you and I are talking to that moment. Like I started writing about WebKit animations, transitions.
Nice.
And I did a talk at a local meetup about it because people knew who I was through these blog posts. Yep. And then who'd I meet at there? Christopher Schmidt. Christopher Schmidt invites me to talk at conferences. Who do I meet at conferences? You, Brad Frost, all these people, like Estelle Weil.
Fascinating.
Like, and
you
like
can draw a pretty straight line. It's not that.
It's not
abstract.
that hard,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying like I knew what I was talking about or still do. I mean, I'm sure I have huge inaccuracies in my thinking, but pretty linear line between like writing and getting invited to conferences and speaking, and it's. I think you should write down your thoughts. So
It's a different world now, so we can't commit the classic like old guy sin
conferences
of, like,
don't
whatever.
exist anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a problem.
It's certainly a different world out there these days, but there's I'm sure equivalent journeys that can and will be had.
I had a dream about a Shop Talk CodePen conference where we're in Denver. We're doing it in Denver because it's somewhat central and easy to get to. And Sarah Drasner lives there. And it was like, this is what we'll do. We'll just do it in Denver. Everyone was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We're going to Denver. It's easy to get to, major airport.
It's going to happen someday, man.
Yeah.
I swear to God, it's one of my dreams is to have an event like that. And I think everybody wants to. I think there's enough momentum there, and I'd be willing to take it on at some point. But my prerequisite is like like a little deeper of a war chest, instead
Yeah,
of
I
being
want
like,
it
"We're
to
doing
cost
fine."
me
No.
$0.
Yeah, I want it
that's
to
the
round down to zero. Yeah.
yeah. That's the only issue I have with the whole situation is I cannot lose 30K or 130K on the job. So just negatively impacts my family's well-being if I lose 100K here and there, So less
man.
less than ideal. So
No, I want to be I watched somebody sent me a reel this morning that was like these hilarious women having a conversation about it. She's like, "What's the hardest thing about being a liberal? Not having any friends with a boat." So
That's good.
I'd like to be the first liberal with a boat. I think
That's good. That's yeah. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's it.
That's my motivating factor from here on out, I think.
Just set goals. Vision board it.
Funny.
All right. Well, thank you, dear listener, for downloading this in your podcatcher or YouTube of choice. Be sure to star, heart, favorite up, shard it up. That's how people find it. Click that thumb button. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications.
Oh, yeah, you can say that now.
I can say that now. And then join us in the Discord. That's where all the fun happens. Patreon.com/ShopTalkShow. And Chris, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
ShopTalkShow.com in current color.